Hi guys, it's Angie from Suburban Survival Guide. We're back here with the Farm 24 XLs from Arrow Garden. We're at day 70 now, so a lot of growth and change has happened. Some great things are happening and we've learned some new tricks. And I'm just going to take today and talk a little bit about them so you can see where we're at. One of the first things I noticed as it's been going, and I mentioned in our last episode, is that planting time should have been varied a little differently. As you can see here, our peppers are being completely hidden away from all the other plants because peppers are so much slower of a grower. But they're starting to finally get a little bit bigger and we've got some blossoms on them. We're able to pollinate them and hopefully we'll get some great things going. If you'll notice, pollinating a plant like a pepper or a tomato is actually pretty simple. They need some wind or some bees to pollinate. They do not need another flower. One blossom will put on a pepper. One blossom will put on a tomato. They don't need to cross-pollinate with each other. So the best thing I've found to do this is a little electric toothbrush, just a battery-powered one. The vibration is enough. No need to buy those expensive little bee pollinator things. They're the same tool as an electric toothbrush. Just one's more expensive and one's cheap. I have bought the cheapest electric toothbrush I could find. I believe it was at Walmart. It might have been our local grocery store. I've had this for years because outside plants will benefit from this too. I get way more tomatoes if I pollinate them myself than if I rely on the wind or the bees. All you have to do is hold that little electric toothbrush while it's vibrating up against either the tomato plant or the pepper plant and vibrate it a minute, and the pollen will fall in on itself and it will activate its wonderful goodness and make a beautiful tomato. As you have seen here, I have about 15 or 16 tomatoes on my plants, not tomato plants, going. One of them's about the size of a small tomato you might find in the store. Sometimes those vine tomatoes they give you are smaller. It's about that size. I'm betting it'll get a little bit bigger, but not much before it starts reddening up, just because the plants I bought were smaller plants to begin with, so they're not known to put on as big of tomatoes. They're doing beautifully. They're doing wonderfully that way. The pollination process is pretty simple, as you can see in this little clip. Sometimes you can see the actual pollen filter down, and it's a beautiful thing. Other times you can't, but it pretty much always works as long as you hit it at the right time. Our cucumbers are doing pretty good. They've had a little struggle here and there. Sometimes they show a little wear on their leaves, meaning there's something off a little bit with their nutrition, but mostly they're just thriving and doing great. As you can see here, the simple way to pollinate a cucumber is you take the male flower, which is that flower that you can see in the video that has no little baby cucumber on it. It's just a flower. And you run a little Q-tip in there. When you're done, you take that Q-tip and you run it along the female flower on the inside of the stamen there. It's just a simple little thing to do. The female flower is the one that looks like it already has baby cucumbers on it, but they're not pollinated yet. The male flower doesn't. Simple, simple, simple. Green beans, they automatically pollinate themselves. They don't even need wind or anything. They just do their job. We have been eating off the green beans for weeks now, and there's only 2 plants on each side, so we don't have an extreme amount of beans, and they're both the bush ones. And bush beans put on a little less beans per plant than the vining beans do, the pole beans, but they're doing really great, and we've had several harvests from them, and then we've enjoyed them. The flavor has been absolutely superb, better than anything I grow outside. I cannot complain there. The tomatoes themselves are doing pretty well, but at the bottom of the plants, you'll notice wherever they don't get sunlight, they seem to curl up and just get a little bit brown, and that's overcrowding. Definitely we overcrowded these plants in the Arrow Garden. The fake sunlight or the LED light is not getting down to them. The UV is not getting to the bottom, and so they're struggling a little there, but it doesn't seem to affect the rest of the plant, and we're getting lots and lots of tomatoes. The beans have been my hardest one. Mostly they're doing great, but when I took them and trimmed their roots about a week and a half ago, the one plant over here decided to struggle a little, but we're bouncing back and we're doing great. The next trick I'm going to teach you is how to prune those roots that are in that water. If you don't trim them back, they will grow out of control crazy. They're thinking they're wanting more and more water, but they don't need to get longer and longer to get the water because they're not in the ground. They don't need to be searching for it. So they just keep growing, and they'll get into your pump. They'll get into your filter. It's not a good thing to let them grow too much. So my best analogy of how to figure it out is when you lift it up, if it's filling the whole thing, you take a third and leave that great part of that roots growing and doing their thing, and take 2/3 and get rid of it. If you keep better look on it and eye on it so they're not getting that big, then take a half maybe at a time. I'm not so great at keeping up with it because it's a pain in the bum for me to lift it up, and I should wait till my kids are home, but I get more done when they're gone. So I try to get all my work done while they're at school during the day, and I don't have helpers then when I'm trying to do that. But as you can see from this video, really anybody can do it, even single-handedly. It's not hard. Just lift up your AeroGarden base that has all those plants on it, pull them back, and just with the little scissors, give them a little trim. If you're nervous, just do a little bit that day and give them a few days to bounce back. And if you feel like there's still too much in there, give them a little bit more. It's probably better for them if you don't be as drastic and abrupt as I am with those plants, but I've got a lot going on and I just don't always have the time to keep trimming it all the time like I should. I would say probably do it once a month, and they grow really fast. The other trick we have found is it's about 2.5 capfuls of the AeroGarden plant food for my plants to be happy. If I even am just 2 capfuls, the beans seem to stress. The cucumbers do too. I don't know why, they just do. And then the next week, midway through, I do a good capful of my CalMag, and it's a big cap, and it does really, really well. I have not seen it affecting the cucumbers or the beans. I worried because they're all mixed together, and really those plants require different nutrients than the tomatoes and the peppers, but so far it's been great. Holding out to see how the next month goes. I think probably hopefully in the next 30 days we'll have a ripe tomato. If not, I would bet in the next 60 days we'll have a ripe tomato. I think we'll be getting some little pepper plants soon. We've only had a few blossoms. Peppers, baby peppers. We've only had a few blossoms open, so we're still waiting on those. Cucumbers, as you can see, they're getting a little bigger, and we've got plenty on, but they're going really slow. Those baby ones that are pollinated, they're the size of maybe the biggest one's the size of my little pinky, if even that. And it's been that way for a little while. It keeps growing just minuscule amounts. And I know outside when I get a baby cucumber on, they went really fast. Everything with the AeroGarden has seemed to be faster except for those cucumbers. But they're doing beautiful. They look beautiful. I think they'll taste wonderful. We've taken advantage of the lights and planted some strawberries back there from my outside garden that were getting in the rocks and not spreading where they needed to be, and I've decided to put them in a planter last year. They're doing really great. We also took advantage and did some oregano that doesn't do as well. Some people have gotten oregano to grow in an AeroGarden, but it doesn't tend to do as well in an AeroGarden, so we planted it in a pot, and the seeds have started. I've started a couple other little AeroGardens. I have the miniature ones. We've got some lettuce growing, and it's, my husband calls it frou-frou lettuce. It's not the head lettuce that you get. It's not the iceberg. There's several different flavors there. He doesn't love it because those lettuces are a bit stronger, a little more bitter tasting when they're grown outside. But in an AeroGarden, I've noticed they still have that little stronger taste, but it's way more mellow than it is outside. So I've really enjoyed these for sandwiches, and they have been there, I think, 3 weeks, and I'm already eating off of them. We've started some of their herbs. They haven't started up yet, and I put spinach, which is also darn near impossible. Some people have made it work, but to grow in an AeroGarden, in a pot, some seeds, and one of those has already started up, and it hasn't even been a week yet. But we're just using and taking advantage of all the lights around. Why not? And they've done wonderful things. Those little pots that you see all these weird little plants put in that my husband made for me off of his 3D printer, they're self-watering pots, all of them, and I've loved them. They've been awesome. The other thing I wanted to point out is we did finally, in the end, decide what to do with our trellises. and I'm really, really happy with it. We didn't end up printing them off of the 3D printer in the end. We just got some plumber's tape from our hardware store in town, used a little wire tie at the end, and this particular plumber's tape, if I cut it at 7 holes, it's exactly what I need. Put them on all 4 corners, strung the butcher's twine in between, and it's doing great. The great thing is watch, I can move it up and down if I want to, but if I don't want it to move at all, it still grips tight enough that it holds really secure. It's way easier to deal with than even the AeroGardens one they send with. I don't know, I've just been happier with it. But everything, as of up to this point, we've been really happy with the Farm 24 XLs. They've done really great. The lights have raised. We're almost to the full height, but not quite there yet, and they've done splendidly. I have no complaints, literally no complaints. Anything that should have gone a little better is totally user error, not AeroGarden error. I should have planted the peppers first and then waited, but things are doing great. If I had the ideal setup and I had 2 more of these, I would put my tomatoes in one, my peppers in one, the cucumbers in one, and my beans in one. And then none of them would be competing with nutrients, none of them would be competing with space, and they would do good. But even with the plants kind of struggling where they don't get light, the rest of the plant seems to be doing so well, it doesn't seem to mind at all. It's been a really neat experience and an experiment seeing what's going on, and hopefully next time I'll be able to show you some tomatoes that are ripe or close to it. But up until this point, I think the most we've gotten is these beautiful beans. This is a little one. We've gotten quite a bit bigger ones, but they're, I mean, even raw, they're spectacular. I don't know how to explain how good these beans taste, but better than anything I've grown outside. So we've been really happy at this point, and we'll just let you know what happens in about another 30, 40 days and see where we're at with that. But up until now, it's been a really, really amazing process and pretty easy to do. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.